Welcome, welcome everybody to our step work, our sacred self-healing program, 24 steps, going through them together and learning about the deeper aspects of these steps. So every step comes with an online portion, a workbook and questions and tasks, and a 20 to 30 minute meditation and energy alignment. So if you're not used to energy alignments yet, those are not just meditations, they actually work on our energetic field, on our vibratory field, and help us to arrive at the given resonance, the given sort of feeling that is being practiced a little quicker. So our today's topic is about grace. Now, grace is a very, very big topic, and for many of you, perhaps also a religious topic. So let's explore this together. Why there's even sort of the mention of grace in such a self-healing program. So this is the overview. This is not the actual workbook. It's the overview of what these main resonances, these main lessons of the step are, and how they work on the 4 different parts of ourselves, on our body, on our physical, on our mental, on our spirit, on our feeling side of things, and how they affect our energy when we work through these steps. And you can see here, there's a few tips on how to tune into this state of grace, your grace self, with different tools on a physical level through nature connection, trusting, learning how to trust in your inner healing power. On the intellectual, mental level, recognizing, well, that your mind can play tricks on you, that there can be sort of narrow views, or that we can get stuck in spirals or loops with our mind, and that can be a limitation at times. So everybody knows when you really set on something and things don't go the way you wanted them to go, that there is a little bit of inner drama going on, as to what we should do, or how we should have done it, or what the right way would have been. And the drama is really our ego resisting that which is. Okay, so that which is basically what we have to deal with. And when we recognize that our mind is limited, what happens is that we cannot really trust in our mind that well anymore, and we should take this as sort of a welcome problem, because a lot of times the reason why we get stuck, the reason why we start spiraling down, is because we get stuck in our minds. And we can see how we can sort of work toward this state of grace, which we will discuss here in a moment, through different avenues, through different ways. And one of the big sort of blockages, to be in that state of inner peace, if you will, that state of feeling connected within, is the mind. The mind is the one that often blocks us from feeling grace, and that's why we want to pay extra attention here to things such as when our mental state is too narrow. It is something that we need to practice. But also feeling wise, it's very important that we tune in to what it actually is that we are feeling. And most people aren't aware of this, but most of us on a feeling level actually experience some form of separation, some form of, Sean, you and I, we just talked about this, a separation anxiety, like the fear of not belonging, the fear of not sort of being part of, the greater reality. And then energetically, it really is what the Sacred Self Healing program is about, to teach you techniques or tools that you can apply, to sort of support your whole system to get into states. That's where the before mentioned energy alignment, the energy meditation that goes with every step comes in. So the recommendation to work the program is that you listen to these energy alignments at least 10 times, because that creates sort of a neural pathway for your inner system to wanting to go there. So I want to ask you guys, many of you here are very familiar with this energy alignment, this grace alignment. What is your personal experience with particularly this step? Many of you have shared this with me before, sort of in individual sessions. Who wants to share?
Jona,
Yes.
Jona, for me, not judging, and also it allows me to go back into witnessing what the heck's going on in my mind, because a
Mm,
lot of the time I have great intentions generally. Not all the time. I can have a shit fit like anyone else. And that's good to acknowledge that really it takes
yeah,
the pressure off.
yeah.
But I still try with certain things that I know might not be able to change. And I think it's more the compassion is there, but it gets muddled with the reality of, like, sorry, I'm just trying to put it in perspective because I've really been reflecting on this with my mother. She's really depressed, and there's
Mm,
nothing I can do to get her out of bed. And I try all these little things, nothing big, nothing externalizing, and it just doesn't work. But I keep just saying, don't be too hard on yourself, because I've got a black belt in that. But what I've really found, I want to get to the crux of it, was that I reflected on the sensations, because my mind can come up with all kinds of solutions. Was the feminine for me, when I can give it, is graceful, and the humility of being humble as a man, kind of, if I feel into that, that has more power than the thoughts I've got running on how I should be and act and feel and do.
that
And
is a
but I
huge
actually
insight.
feel into it, because I can be profound like anyone else, but it's like I need context and I need two-way street, because otherwise I'm feeling left out, and I don't want that, because that's specialness again, in a way, or whatever
It's
it
tricky.
is. So it is
It's tricky.
tricky. And I do feel like I belong. There's so many times where I'm like, I do belong. I feel it with everyday people, or side characters in my show, and I'm a side character in theirs, and it's beautiful. But then when it comes to my mum, I'm getting a lot better at it, but I'm not going to ever completely get rid of it. And I think that's where the humility comes in.
That was a lot of different things that you just shared.
Sorry, I've
No,
been
thank
working
you.
really hard
Thank
on
you. You
this.
actually you actually given us an example of the conflicted inner dialogue that we all have. We
Thank
all
you.
have that. Okay. Yeah, I think I can speak for all of us here. It is the dualism in us, the polarity in us. Yeah, oh yeah, my intentions are good, but then my expressions aren't always congruent with it. They aren't always coming across. Or you spoke about contending with the reality of what is there, right? Dealing with someone who is in a low state, okay, creates sort of a sympathetic response in us. Yeah, it pulls us along down with them, and if we try so hard, okay, that can be a part, where the application of humility would perhaps even recommend to not trying so hard. And that's in conflict with our mind, right? Because as it's your mom, okay, so that is a whole another conversation that we'll have here in later steps. But, it feels like that it's the right thing to do. Yeah, to trying to help somebody. Yeah, let's just sort of generalize it a bit. But then again, we can also experience a lot of frustrations or resentment, even, when that is not working. Okay. And this is a very, very typical inner conflict. Okay. You have good intentions, you try something, you try really hard, say, but it is not actually, sort of showing you the results that you think you should have. And this is exactly that moment where we need to remember grace. It is the moment where we realize that no matter how hard we try, no matter what we do, we're just not getting there. Yeah. And this is why the word surrender, is a key word here with working with grace, because surrender, and we first have to kind of evaluate what it is that needs to be surrendered. But surrender is a spiritual technique, if you will, all right, that requires us all that we think how it should be, how it used to be, how it's supposed to be, okay, and whatever our ego, yeah, that the part in us, remember step 2, the part in us that wants to will things, yeah, thinks it has to be. The surrender is not a defeat. Surrender is a moment where you realize that whatever it is that you're trying isn't working, and that you are perhaps at the end of your wits. That it would be insane to continue doing what you're doing, or trying to be doing more of what you're already doing and expecting different results. Do you guys all sort of know this feeling that I'm referring to? Like where you try so hard, whether it's in relationships, whether it's with money, with job, with, I don't know, art, could be anything. There's a point where we have to content with the reality, like you said, that it's not working. And this is a moment in every person's life, no matter whether they're spiritually oriented or not, that causes a lot of inner pain, inner conflict. It is the moment where our energy basically starts going into whatever sort of our little pet peeve is. If our pet peeve is feeling excluded or feeling disrespected or feeling left out, feeling not good enough or whatever, this is a little different for each and every one of us. But when we are at that threshold where we need to accept that our ego is at the end of its wits, and we're just not quite ready to accept that yet, that's when we go low. This is when our energy dips, and this is the moment that we need to catch. Because if we can find a way to not fall into that trap, to not go into our separation anxiety or our resentments or our despair or our anger, yeah, maybe a few seconds or so, but then to kind of realize, okay, I guess whatever it is that I'm trying isn't working. So it's a moment for me to let go. And this is now the big part. Most of us don't know what else we could do. This is like a dead end for us, and our ego responds with fear, yeah, with survival, because when we have to admit to ourselves that we are at the end of our width, okay, what else is there? Well, when our mind is narrow, we cannot see that there is anything else that we could possibly do, to help ourselves or whatever the situation is that we need to resolve. And for that, we need a strategy. And the strategy that I'm suggesting here in step 5 is called clearing through the heart and learning how to trust in our inner higher power. So the inner dialogue that we're aiming at is basically, okay, whatever it is that I'm doing is not working, okay, and trying more and trying harder is just going to pull me further down. So out of self-love, out of self-preservation, I need to stop what I'm doing, and instead I'm going to activate, I'm going to call on my higher powers, or whatever I define as higher power, yeah, and hand it over. This is basically sort of the image that you can carry in you, yeah, that you hand over something, not to some external power, but to something that knows the answer, something, it's a visualization, okay? We're assuming that this is a part of us knows the way to go. We just temporarily can't access that part because our mind is too focused on that one solution. So we're giving up, hanging on to this one solution and opening ourselves up. We're inviting sort of the higher power, yeah, the part that also resides in us, in to maybe help us, to give us clues or to guide us into the right direction. Yeah, we're practicing sort of a technique that allows us to learn to trust in our heart as a navigator. But for this, we first need to build a proper reference feeling for this, because if we have never actually done this, and trust me, when you're an entrepreneur like I am, okay, and when you have helped build many businesses and helped other people to build their businesses, you have experienced these moments many, many times. It is, you have a plan, you set out to do it, and it just doesn't work the way you had it planned out, right? So what are you going to do? Okay, you throw the whole thing. Okay, I've done that many times. You throw the whole thing and start something new, and then you tell yourself, oh yeah, it's because of this and because of this, because of the weather, because of the economy, because of politics, because of something, okay? Problem with this is that there's not really a learning experience for you, and not really sort of the skill that needed to be refined, that it couldn't really come forward if we do that. So I'm not saying that, this may sound contradictory now, to not throw the towel, because there's moments where relationship really doesn't work out, and it's better to to head toward a breakup, and to quit a job, or it's better to stop doing something because it really isn't healthy for us. But if it is something that we feel deep in our hearts that we should do, but it doesn't quite work out the way we had this panned out, okay, then we have to take a step back with our ego and allow this higher part in us, yeah, or higher self, or higher power, if you will, if you have an understanding of higher power, to come in, all right, and help you resolve it. It's a sort of a calling on higher power, a calling on grace to enter, your problem field. Yeah, and it's like, I'm really at the end of my wits. I tried everything with my ego and it didn't work. Okay, I admit my ego is powerless. Can you help me, please? All right. And in that moment, there's something very, very powerful that happens in us. We are letting go of our ego and all its error perceptions. The word error perception is a word that I use on purpose because there's no judgment with it. When our mind becomes narrow, we cannot see other solutions. And this is what we basically need to learn to overcome. We need to get out of the narrow state and open ourselves back up so that we can even see other ways. That's sort of the main power of this step. And if somebody has sort of a strong feeling or can develop a strong feeling for higher power, a love for God or Christ or Allah or whomever you sort of associate with higher power or angels or whatever. When you have a very strong feeling for that already, then you can work with that as well. I suggest here in this step that you work with a symbol. I suggest that you work with a visualization of a white rose. That works for all religions, that works for everyone, no matter what your understanding of higher power is. All right, the white rose sort of as this, you had a beautiful description of it, John, here a moment ago. The humbleness and the grace, yeah, of the gentle humbleness, I think you called it. To step into that as a man is very powerful, and you're absolutely right. Yeah, this is exactly what it is, and it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. It is the same for all of us. There's a gentle humbleness. It's not a defeat, but it's a humbleness toward whatever the problem and the solution is, and say, I am temporarily at the end of my rope. I do not know what to do, and that's okay. Please open me up. Show me what I cannot see. Show me what I need to refine, what I need to heal, what I need to work on, so that I can see more options. So the key to this is really that we start forming a routine for ourselves, okay, to get into this state where you're even capable of admitting these things. Do you guys know what I mean? Where you're even sort of at this, where you can arrive at this point where you can admit that to yourself that, hey, I'm it. This is it. I give up. But without giving whatever it is that you're trying to do, but you giving up the way you're trying to accomplish it. Okay, I need a new way. I need a new solution. I need a new perspective. And for that, I suggested that we, learn a breathing technique, and this is very common in mindfulness and all spiritual traditions. Start out with the breathing technique, and last time I introduced the I am breathing to you as a way to just sort of become a little bit more present with ourselves and to calm down our nervous system, to calm down our thinking, to calm down our emotions, and to just really arrive at a place with ourselves where we can even, consider, that maybe there are other ways. Yeah, so let's do this together here, everybody. Yeah, let's take a deep breath. Do you guys all remember how to do the I am breathing? Yeah, take a deep breath in. Pull your energies from below and above into your heart region here. And you breathe out sideways, as wide as you can. Let me do it again. Pull energies, yeah, from up above and from down below into your heart like a vacuum cleaner. Let the hotness convert in your heart. And now breathe out. And one more time. This time with the I and the am sounded out, just to give it a little bit of oomph. Okay. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. So this is our preparation, yeah, to even get to a place where we can have these kind of thoughts as sort of clear inner guidance, yeah? Like, no matter what I try, it's not working. I'm definitely at the end of what my ego can do. Yes, you felt immediately lighter. And this is so easy. It always works. Yeah, that's right, Cindy. Okay, so to get to this place, I'm like, oh, what am I not seeing? Okay, if there is something that I'm not seeing, all right, then I need to, change the glasses that I'm wearing. Okay, because if I can't see something, I don't know what I'm not seeing. So I need to take off my glasses and I need to admit to myself, all right, whatever it is that I think is the only way or the right way or whatever, I'm going to just let this, I'm going to just let this go right now. And I'm just going to like, okay, show me. Show me what I'm not seeing. Reveal to me what it is that I could do differently, that I could improve on, that I could refine, that I could clear too. Maybe there's stuff that I have to release. There's stuff that I have to let go because it's really not working for me anymore. A lot of times, guys, it's not just the mind, it's also our attachments. Sean, this is why it's so difficult when we're trying to help others. Yeah, the love that we have for others, the attachment that we have to them can be in the way of actually finding solutions. Yeah, so we have to kind of let that go, whatever it is that we're thinking needs to work, or even just assuming that we know what is the right thing for others or that we know what works. We need to let that go. And it doesn't mean that it's wrong or that it's not the right thing. It just means that maybe perhaps the approach, or the agenda, the intention behind that is not really refined enough. So you understand, it's really about arriving at the place where we can sort of empty our container and find sort of new ways. That's all we need for preparation. And we use breathing technique for this, and then we can enter into the conversation. What is grace? What is grace? Well, in the workbook I wrote, grace begins where the ego ends. And today, we learn to surrender not as defeat, but as an opening to love. Being in grace means allowing the higher vibratory power of love to harmonize what the ego cannot fix. Let me repeat this. Being in grace means allowing the higher vibratory power of love to harmonize what ego cannot fix. Now, this is a tricky one, especially when it comes to other people that we love, because we are obviously doing things out of love. But maybe it is not quite the higher love that is needed to truly be of service to somebody else, in this case, in this example that you made. Yeah, whatever it is that we think our agenda is maybe not quite in its highest expression. So we are asking, basically, this is sort of the metaphysical, the spiritual underpinning, we're asking for the higher expression of our intentions to come in. And a lot of times, if not all times, these higher expressions are still unknown to us. They're not fully clear to us, which means that our ego can't really come up with them. Yeah, if our ego only knows this way or this way or that way, it cannot come up with, you can't think this. All right, so you have to learn to open yourself up for something that is, well, perhaps already in you, but has not really found its expression in your daily life. Yeah, you got to cultivate something new. So the golden rule, and this is, later I'm going to contradict myself, yeah, but the golden rule that we can start out with just so that we can grasp onto something when we are caught in these moments of total inner polarity and dualism is the less ego, the more grace. The more grace, the less ego. So really what we need to tune into is, and this, we can do this with our mind, with our higher mind, we can ask ourselves, is this really the only way? Or is this only the only way I can think of or I can come up with? Are there other ways? There always is a third option. Why third option? Because our ego can only come up with, this is the way and that's the only way. Or if that's not the way, well, then we have to throw everything away. All or nothing, black or white, good or bad. Oh, good boy, bad boy. When you catch yourself, when you catch your thought processes, and that sort of, when it sounds like that, guess what? You know that you're in your ego. Why? Because there always is at least one more option, and that is the middle ground. It is the part that we're not seeing and the part that we're not willing to let go. So the middle ground is a bit abstract, but the middle ground is always the smallest common denominator. It always is. So ask yourself, if you're not sure what it is that you're not seeing, what it is that you know, why you get stuck, why you can't find the right way, or why things don't work out. All right, ask yourself first, am I stuck in my ego? Am I thinking in this sort of black and white way? Am I thinking in all or nothing? What if it is different or works differently? What if it's a variation of what I'm already trying? I just need to like kind of modify it a little bit. Yeah, that would be the third option. Yeah, but if you catch yourself being stuck in all or nothing, or this is bad and this is good, okay, you know that you're stuck in your ego. So if you actually want to, you know, find a solution, a higher vibratory solution to whatever problem you're encountering, all right, you need to first admit to yourself that you are in a place where technically you can't even find a better solution because you are so stuck in a rigid thought pattern that only allows you to see, you know, black and white, all or nothing, dark or light. And this also has to do with our judgments and our, you know, critical voice and negative self-talk and all these things. And there's a whole sort of rat's tail to this that we're going to go through in these 24 steps. But here in step 5, it's really about learning just one thing, and that is, yes, our mind is valuable. That doesn't mean that we are a failure. Yes, sometimes you cannot see the tree for the woods. Yeah. And that's why we need a technique or we need a strategy, you know, for sort of taking a step back, breathing, and then looking at the context. And right there, yeah, we're at the bigger picture again. We cannot see the bigger picture if we are stuck in black and white. We cannot see the truth of our situation if we are in judgment, if we are, too polarized within, if we are too conflicted within. So what is then, when we want to investigate what grace is, and I will give you an esoteric definition here in a few moments as well, but this was more sort of a self-help, psychological definition that I've given you so far. But if we want to investigate this a little further, let's always come and ask, what is it not? Yeah, this is a very sort of scientific way of approaching the subject, is to like, okay, what is it truly and what is it not? Just so that you have references for, on and off, if you will. What is not graceful? How do we know that we're not in grace? Well, as I said, when you can only see black and white, you are not in a graceful state. You are in a low state. In fact, so low that you cannot see truth. That needs to be recognized, that we need to get there through self-reflection, because you don't have anybody standing next to you at all times, even though it sometimes maybe feels that way in your head, the monkey mind, or the commentator in you. Okay, but you need to learn to ignore that anyway. Negative inner dialogue is very, very damaging for us, and we also talk about that in a later step. But when you're not in grace, what happens is that you are basically not able to see the bigger picture, and that is what we need to aim at. Okay, there is a part in us that blocks that, and now you may think of like dark forces or something complicated like that. No, it's actually our own ego. Okay, our own ego prevents us from, sort of going into this connected place, not because it's mean or it's against us. Our ego is a very important part of who we are. It is just sort of a baby version of who we are. So the higher self that we're aiming at has a sort of a more matured, a more refined ego. But our, little 3-year-old, 5-year-old ego, okay, it tries to block that bigger connection because it doesn't really know whether it is something from the outside or something from the inside. So it feels very uncertain. It doesn't really know if, you're doing good, if you've been a good boy or if you've been a bad boy. And that has to do with this dualistic, this polarized state, because in that polarized state of black and white, good and bad, on and off, or all or nothing, you tend to judge. So the reason why the ego blocks the state of grace is because it is afraid of judgment. And why is that? Because the ego, the 3-5-year-old in us, has sort of a very externalized idea of higher power. It's kind of like the power that sits somewhere on a cloud or whatever, that is sort of the almighty, the all-controlling, the over-father, or something like that, that watches every of our step and judges us and puts us into either the naughty or nice category, like Santa does. Okay, yeah, this is a very archaic but very common sort of archetypal way of thinking and feeling about higher power. And so there's a part of our ego that blocks that because it feels that it's dangerous, it's not safe. Maybe, it's a mean God or a mean higher power, and we have to protect ourselves from it. So you got to understand this. There's a lot of subconscious stuff going on. Yeah. And at the same time, the ego also tries to play God. It also says, oh, I know the solution. I know how this goes. Okay. I know better than God. I can do this. Yes. Our little 3, 5-year-old ego, okay, tries to be God in that way. It tries to be bigger than higher power. And that's why surrender is such a gentle, humble process, because we have to kind of admit, without beating ourselves down or punishing ourselves, that, we're up there, okay, but not all the way, okay? There is higher power. There is things in this life that are way beyond, our comprehension and way beyond our control as well. Yeah, so once more, grace begins when we admit we cannot fix it with the ego. Yeah, when the ego is sort of, yeah, well, you know, what you can and can't control. Remember serenity, we talked about this in the last step. Yeah, so right after sort of we did this inventory of what we can and what we can't control comes grace. Because right there is the needed strategy for all the things that we cannot control. So, for our own sanity, we focus on the things that we can control. And the things that we cannot control, we hand them over to higher power. Can you guys follow me so far? This is basically the process of tuning into grace. Now, there are some deeper aspects to grace, and why I called it grace. I could have also called it surrender, but I did not. Grace in many of our languages is also linked to the humbleness, the mercifulness. Yeah, you tell me, guys. Just the word grace, not the meaning that you give it through your spiritual training, but what does grace, the word grace, kind of is associated with? Cindy, you say, yeah, the transporter, the carrier wave of higher states, very abstract, yeah.
It's the like the opposite of being obsessive, because
Okay,
it's
yeah,
it to be practical, just be everyday practical. Like
totally.
grace,
Yeah,
okay, stop the obsession because it's not working.
very good. I like that. I like that. I've never actually ever heard it this way, but I can second that. Yeah, because when there's an obsessive energy in us, right, like fixated or narrow or contracted, there's like zero chance that we're going to resolve bigger things in life. I mean, you can, maybe, you know, resolve issues like bookkeeping issues this way, or handiwork or something. But the bigger things in life, like relationship, love, inner peace, success, they cannot really be resolved with this obsession, with this obsessive or even addictive, right? That's why ego is so often related to our addictive structure. Yeah, because it obsesses us about one way, one solution, one opinion, and nothing else. And we got to recognize that that's a limitation. Yes, also acceptance, like where we are. Well, there's still stuff that we need to figure out. There's still stuff we need to learn. What else does the word grace stand for you without, the spiritual definitions? But if you feel into the feeling of grace,
I feel safe
safe, yeah.
because it's not pushing on anything, and it's not like a, oh, I need to be safe. And because I tell you, I've bought every little candle and thing and quartz and this, and I'm like, hang on a second. Yeah, but you got to be home.
No, it's a feeling is safe from within, not through anything on the
Exactly.
outside. Yeah,
But
that's
it
right.
looks nice. I've created a
But
talent of
that's a different
decorating.
aspect of it. Yes, beauty is also linked to grace. A lot of times when things are when they express, the sort of this gentle humbleness, when they express sort of something that is loving, okay, they also, we as humans also experience them as beautiful. Just think of music or paintings, yeah, the arts. Cindy is saying here, forgiveness and compassion, yes, very much so. And I was just waiting for this because the deeper aspect of grace is really this understanding of, well, non-judgmentalism really, but this understanding that there always is a second chance. There always is a way. Okay, just because it doesn't work the first time doesn't mean it's wrong. Yeah, and forgiveness and compassion, those are like loaded words, but it really is all about, recognizing that, we're not supposed to have all answers. We're not supposed to be perfect. We're supposed to learn these ways. We're supposed to refine and purify and cultivate and clear out and, bring in new things. And we're supposed to be active in this sort of co-creative process as humans. Are we supposed to be finished with everything? Are we supposed to know everything and to have all answers? Guys, what would life be
It's
if we,
impossible
well, it'd be boring. I mean, there would be nothing that would actually give life a purpose.
or motivation at all.
So we must assume that the reason why we're here, guys, is to go through all these things, is to learn all these different ways of contending, of working with reality. And then later we will also discover that there are more realities than just this one physical material 3D reality. So to harmonize that is a whole nother level. But for us to sort of start building a bridge and not to get stuck too much in just sort of one way, I'm suggesting a clearing technique here in this step in the program called clearing through the heart. And really what it is learning how to breathe through things. So there's an aspect of, calming down our nervous system. We do this with just the breathing techniques that we do. But then, that's the moment where we can be more present with that's the process how we can get more present with ourselves. So now the whole process starts. Now we're going to have to look at things the way they are. And as we're looking at things the way they are, even just think about admitting to yourself that what you have been trying isn't working. This isn't an easy thing to do. I have spent years in admitting to myself that my marriage isn't working for me, or the job or the career that I wanted so badly, that I was successful in worldly terms, but that it was actually sort of killing me from the inside. All right, years and years I spent with trying to find justifications and all kinds of reasons why I should continue and so forth. This is not as easy as it is said. So in order to support our own system to walk through this often painful experience, just think about a marriage, this is just one example, but you put all your hopes onto this one relationship. You invested a lot, okay, and you really, really, really wanted it to work, okay, and you have to come to the realization that it's not working. This is a very painful process, not the actual breakup or dealing with divorce stuff and all that, but to give up that idea, yeah, that projection of that relationship that you wanted. You wanted it to last forever. This was your intention, but it doesn't work. This is the hardest part, guys, to let go of our aspirations, of our projections. Yeah, and therefore, also the underlying cause for a lot of our inner dissonances. In psychology, they're called cognitive dissonances. Yeah, that is when you're doing something that is actually not good for you, but you are continually telling yourself that, oh, just this time, or oh, it's just because. Da, da, da. Whenever you hear yourself talk this way, you know your ego is running the show. You're no longer authentic in that moment. Yeah, if you are authentic, you do not need justifications. You don't need reasons. It is very clear to you. There's a clarity in you. And that clarity also gives you the courage to move forward and to surrender your ego at times if needed. So here in the summary, I point at the admitting to ourselves when we're disconnected from our higher power, because that's really what it is. And when we are in our ego, we are disconnected from our higher power. So that's why I pointed out the more ego, the less grace. The more grace, the less ego. All right. And that is a development. This is the development of refining, of cultivating, yeah, of purifying our ego to become our higher self, really, because that's ultimately, yeah, the job that our ego has. It has to mature so that it's no longer just like a 3-year-old running the show, yeah, but maybe a mature 35 or 42-year-old. The last aspect here that I want to bring in is the alignment to the 12-step work. So step 5 and 6 are both aligned to the step 3 in AA, which sounds like this: made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of higher power as we understand it. That's very important, that we don't get into any kind of confliction here about my God, your God, or whatever you see as God. It's very important that we make this an internal process of what it is that we imagine or that we work with as a power that is higher than our ego. And it doesn't really take long, guys, if you continue doing this program here, for you to recognize that your ego isn't really that far developed compared to some of the other spiritual senses and organs that you have. But because we have never been trained those, it's very hard for us to know what our true higher powers are. And so we doubt them or we negate them. Yeah, so grace here is building the bridge, and the first sort of stone toward this bridge of connecting more with higher power is actually that we recognize that our ego is not God. And well, I guess we can just leave it there, that we are not all, and that there's got to be higher power, and we're turning it over, but we're still part of the process. We want to learn something through this. So I would like to ask you just a few self-reflective questions here at the very end, that have to do with us sort of working a little bit more with how we understand higher power. Okay, how do you understand higher power? And how do you imagine higher power sees you? And if you want to go a step further, so these are additional sort of bonus questions here for working with step 5. How, through whom, or through what, who or what sort of created your understanding of higher power? And you don't have to be critical of it. You just have to kind of become more aware of that so that you can also understand better why your ego sometimes blocks it. Because if you have, for example, an understanding of higher power, like I mentioned earlier, of this sort of overfather that sits there and judges all your actions and thoughts and sentiments, it's very likely that you tend to sabotage yourself because, there's a sort of a very subconscious fear of being judged. And in the end, you end up being your worst judge. But if that is how you think higher power operates, yeah, if that's how you were conditioned, or if that's how you formed your understanding of higher power, then you might be running into these sort of inner conflicts here with aligning to higher power. So I want you to become more aware of how you define higher power, and maybe even if you think you know how you define higher, do it anyway, okay? And just sort of define it very clearly for yourself. In step 6, which is called higher consciousness, we're going to investigate that a little bit more together. What is higher power? What does it feel like? How do we know that we are connected? But here in step 5, where we just want to arrive at that point of, all right, I guess I'm at the end of my rope. There's got to be a solution. I can't see that solution right now. Yeah, I know that there is a higher power that knows the solution, so why not call that in? Yeah, and humbly ask for support. Situations where you can apply this, and I can assure you that I applied all these things, these techniques, these strategies that I am teaching here myself. So whenever you are so emotionally upset, so low in your love for yourself and the world that you want to throw the towel. But also when you're in a state of total confusion and total mind fog and, not able to make a decision or not able to see through something. That is more sort of a mental component. Catch that right away and hand it over. Say to yourself, okay, wait. I'm in a spiral here. I'm in a loop here. Let me hand this over to Grace. And my suggestion in the meditation, the energy meditation, ends with the Grace prayer. Those of you who work with me here in the Energy Training Club know this from Grace Integrity. Yeah, it's a very, very powerful way of sort of aligning ourselves, back to higher power as you understand it, and also to enter this self-reflective, part of what am I not seeing? Help me to see what I'm not seeing. Yeah, so it goes like this. Grace, for thee I thirst. Into thy hands I commit my life, my body, my mind, my spirit, heart and soul, and all error perceptions thereof. Thy will is my will, and thy will be done through me. Heal me at depths. Reveal all that needs to be revealed. Heal all that needs to be healed. So I can glorify you, God, I am, and live in the consciousness of grace now and at all times. Thank you. Yeah, so this is it, everyone. Okay, I hope that this step work helped you to form a better understanding, a better feeling for grace. Yeah, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for participating, asking questions. And if you have comments or if you have more questions, please write them down in the comment section. I will respond, or even consider to join us in our Sacred Self-Healing community that is free for everyone. It's been a pleasure and a joy being here with you. I see you again next Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern U.S. time.